Thanks for joining us here on Octagon Outlook. My name is James Lynch. Today is September 28th. We have got a lot to go through, and I'm going to need some help this week, like I did last week, with going through UFC 253 and previewing this Saturday's UFC Fight Island card coming up here on Saturday. And who better than the man himself, the James Krause, UFC Welterweight. James, how's it going, man?
Good. Great, man. Just got out of practice and ready to get this thing popping.
Get this party started. Really appreciate it. For anyone watching live right now, if you want to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button here on the Line Movement YouTube channel. All my best interviews are on here and this show every week, so that would be greatly appreciated. Let's dig right into this, though. UFC 253. What a card this was. I actually caught up on this yesterday. I want to proudly tell people I managed to avoid spoilers for the most part. I had someone message me that Jan Blachowicz won on Saturday, so that kind of ruined it for me. But other than that, I got to watch this pretty much fresh. And in the main event, it is Israel Adesanya getting the TKO victory over Paulo Costa in the main event. You know, I saw a lot of people heading into this fight saying that Paulo Costa is going to take Adesanya's head off. This was a total domination by Israel Adesanya, and what I really like was the game plan in this fight, with going to the leg, really neutralizing that stand-up of Paulo Costa. First, we'll start with just, Adesanya's game plan. James, you're one of the best coaches in the game. What did you think of that, and was this a surprise to you for him going against the knee? Because I didn't expect this heading into the fight.
No, like I seen right away whenever the fight started, Costa came out at like a really, really long range. And if you've watched before, it was fun going into this fight because there was two different references. Like I watched the Uriah Hall fight was the reference that I used for Costa in terms of like what is the closest thing to Izzy that we're gonna see, right? And that was the Hall fight. And Hall gave him some problems early on with the jab and staying long. And then the best reference I could use is not a great one, but the best reference I could use was Kelvin Gastelum for Costa. And I just didn't think that Costa had I think he wins fights off of just bullying people. And Izzy's not a guy that you can bully. He's just too technical. And right away you see like they come out and they play in this like really, really long range. And I 10 seconds in the fight, I said, well, this is going to be a short night for Izzy. Like he's the best in the world at playing at that range. You can't sit at that range with him. Like, look at his Anderson Silva fight, like what he did to Brunson. Like, if you sit at the end of his punches, you're going to get whipped with that low kick and a nice straight punch. He just does such a good job hiding everything. He does a really good job feigning, just keeping you guessing the whole time. But you can't play in that range. You're going to have to walk him down like Gastelum did, kind of get in his face a little bit if you want to hit him. And I don't know. I feel like it was one of those nights where Izzy was on. He's seen it all, and then I think the pressure got to Costa a little bit too. He just didn't look. He didn't look as confident as he normally does. And I will say this: I've coached on Fight Island. I've coached Dawson. I've coached Tim Elliott on there, and I think you're seeing a lot of people like put out a not so stellar performance because of the time change. Like, these guys are fighting at like 3 a.m., 2 a.m. I think they probably fought at like 7 a.m. You know what I mean? So it's not like, and not to mention it's a 15-hour flight, it's 9-hour time change. Like, so your sleep is just all kinds of jacked up. But I mean, if Izzy can do what he did against Costa all day, so it's no, you know what I mean? Like, you can wake up at 3 a.m. and sit at range and he'll pick you apart. But, I think Costa just had a very poor fight IQ, poor game plan going into that fight. Izzy obviously is the best in the world at picking people apart at range, and it just showed.
And from a coaching perspective, I wanted to get your thoughts on this because I just saw this before we hopped on here today. But Walid Ismail, his coach, one of his coaches, mentioned that the game plan was to go after Adesanya later in the fight, and it kind of backfired. Do you buy that, or do you think that he was, not expecting the leg kicks and it kind of took him out of his element? Because I'm sure Costa would have gone in there and tried to, take Adesanya out early, but it seemed like that leg kick, neutralizing that and kind of making that a thing that maybe Costa wasn't expecting. I think that kind of threw him off. What do you think of Ismail's comments on that?
I mean, I guess my question is like, what was the game plan to start with? Like, if you're going to drag him into the deep end, how are you going to drag him into the deep end? Like, you're just going to sit at range with him? I mean, I'm not, I don't want to, I haven't heard the whole story, so I don't want to like bash that. Yeah. But like, Izzy is one of the best strikers in the world. Like, what are you going to do until that? It's not like the dude gets tired. You know what I mean? Like, he's not fading in fights. So what are you going to do for the first 3 rounds? Like, that would be the question. You got to make it to that point with him. He's knocking out some of the best middleweights in history. You know what I mean? Like, this dude's good, man. Once again, I don't know the whole story, but it seems like that was a very, very poor choice of game plan, in my opinion. Like, in my opinion, you have to address him early. and often.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like you have to initiate. You have to fight him. You know what I mean? Like you got to fight that dude. If you sit at range, there's nobody that's going to beat him. I'm just telling you right now, nobody's gonna pick him apart from range. It's not going to happen. You're gonna have to fight him like Gastelum did. You're gonna have to eat a couple to come in, and you're gonna have to fight that dude. You're gonna have to force him to fight. And I think the reason why everybody thought this was going to be a good fight is because Costa has traditionally done that. He did that with Yoel. He's done that with Uriah Hall. But once again, you're talking about guys that aren't Izzy. You know what I mean? Like he's the best in the world for a reason. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think Costa beats the other leads. I don't think he beats Gastelum. I don't think he beats Cannonier. I don't think he beats Whitaker, Till. None of those guys. I think he's good, but I don't think he beats any of those guys.
Interesting. And that was sort of going to be my next question. Adesanya remaining undefeated at 20-0, Costa with his first loss. Adesanya with a lot of respect for Jared Cannonier after the fight, which I really liked. Obviously, Cannonier's got to fight Robert Whitaker next month. But I think if he wins that fight, that's sort of the next matchup for Adesanya. There's also that really important fight between Jack Hermansson and Darren Till. Hopefully, like I said, if Cannonier wins that, if Whitaker wins, then that might open up the winner of Cannonier, and Hermansson and Darren Till, just because it would be a fresh matchup. I don't know if we want to see that rematch with Whitaker and Adesanya next, but we'll have to see there. And for Costa, I think he fights one of the losers of that fight, whether it is Whitaker or Cannonier or like I said, the loser of Hermansson and Till. What do you think of that?
Well, I don't think if Whitaker loses, I don't think they'll give him Costa. I think if Whitaker loses, they'll give him somebody else a little bit lower down the totem pole to. I think they need him to be good. He's had a murderer's row, man. He's fought the who's who. I personally think the toughest matchup for Izzy in that division right now is Till or Gastelum. I would be interested to see what Till does. I like that. I like that matchup. He's got a very good understanding of range. He covers distance well. He's got power. I'm not. To out kickbox Izzy is a very, very tall order. And to wrestle him is he's good too. I'm interested in the Cannonier. If Cannonier wins, I think he's right there. I think there's a lot of it's weird because this is a division that I feel like you can interchange these guys at any point in time. Like I feel like the one I'm interested in is Till and Hermansson. Those two I think will give the best chance of somebody beating Izzy there. Hermansson obviously he's just one of those guys that's so tricky with his jiu-jitsu. He's one of those guys that can pull guard and even not that he would, but he's just tricky. He's really dangerous. You got to watch him. Till, I like that fight a lot. I don't think Whitaker will get a title shot. If he wins, I think he'll have to get one more. But there's just so many interchanging parts there. So you could take the loser of any of those and put those against Costa, and that'll be a fun fight, obviously. But, all those guys are freaking good, man. They're really good, and you can all interchange them. They all bring something unique to the table. And I'll be honest, man. I thought Whitaker was fighting Izzy really well the second time. I thought he was fighting him really well until he didn't. You know what I mean? Like the blitz style, I thought it was really good. And then Izzy just, did that matrix, lean back, hit him with the two hooks. And he's just good, man. He's really good.
And in the co-main event, we have a light heavyweight champion that is not named Daniel Cormier or John Jones for the first time in forever, as Jan Blachowicz gets the TKO finish on Dominic Reyes in the second round. This was all Jan Blachowicz from the opening bell. Just looked outstanding in this fight. Age is not a number here, James. He was able to go out there and take care of business in this one. And, you talked about, the travel time for some of these fighters. I don't know if that had an impact on Reyes, but Reyes did not look the same. And I'm not taking any credit away from Jan's performance. He looked outstanding, but Reyes did look a bit off. I don't know if it was that or that he went to train at Elevation Fight Team for this camp, but Reyes did not look the same. What did you think of Blachowicz's performance? Because like the main event, I thought this was a total domination for the Polish fighter who is now the new champion.
Blachowicz is good, man. I said this, I picked Reyes to win, but I said this is going to be a really good fight. And I think Blachowicz is just underrated because he's just he's not doing anything flashy. You know what I mean? He's just fundamental boxing. I think what's happening though is with these guys, he does a lot of good things that you can't necessarily see. And I think the reason why, this is my opinion, the reason why Reyes looked a little off is I feel like Blachowicz is a guy that even if he doesn't hit you hard, you feel it. You know what I mean? If it thuds you on the chest or, neck or whatever, you feel the power and you're like, oh shit, I can't get hit with that. You know what I mean? Like I gotta respect that. And I think he does a really good job of getting respect early in his fights, and he does a lot of things really well that big guys don't traditionally do well. He does a great job punching on the break. Watch his fight with Rockhold. He's got good power in both hands. He's knocked out 3 guys in a row now. Left hand, right hand, I think. And but he's got power both hands. He's dangerous, man. Good takedown defense. He's just extremely underrated, but he's not super flashy. He's just a fundamental guy. But where the biggest advances in his game have been, in my opinion, are his defense. He's doing a great job kind of staying defense and counter punching off that. He's hurting people off of his counter punch. He's not really getting hit much anymore. He's really added a lot to his game, and he's good. He's gonna be tough to beat.
I agree, and of course, John Jones chimed in on Blachowicz' performance, saying that he's interested in that fight. Personally, James, I don't think that happens. I think Jones goes to heavyweight. I think the reason he went to heavyweight in the first place, or at least made that decision, is because there's bigger money fights for him up there. I just don't see financially what he has to gain from fighting a Jan Blachowicz. I know there's probably there's the challenge of it, obviously, with Blachowicz looking great, but I just think there's bigger fights for him at heavyweight. I don't see him coming back down. And then in terms of what's next for both guys, and I'll get your thoughts on this after. I think Blachowicz fights the winner of Thiago Santos and Glover Teixeira. He has a loss to Thiago Santos, so especially if Santos wins that fight, he can get some revenge there. If not, can you imagine Glover Teixeira getting another title shot against another guy in Blachowicz who's almost 40 as well? So that would be cool. And then for Dominic Reyes, it's just a killer's row right now at light heavyweight. There's a lot of up and comers. Rakic, who we saw defeat Anthony Smith.
Rakic
we have
is tough, man.
Yeah, Yuri Prokaska as well, who knocked out Volkan Ozdemir. I think he's up there as well too. So there's a lot of good options for Dominic Reyes as well. I don't think they're going to give him any easy fights, but first, what do you think about John Jones potentially coming back? Do you buy it? And 2, what do you think is next for both guys in your opinion?
Both guys, Blachowicz and Reyes?
Yeah.
I agree 100% with what you said. Blachowicz gets a winner of Santos Teixeira.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, it would be Santos, and that fight makes the most sense because he already beat him. You can sell that fight a lot easier, money. What sucks is coming off of a loss, man, in that division. It's just no easy fights, man. There's I don't think there's a lot of guys that are going to beat Reyes outside of Blachowicz though in that division. I don't know who he gets. You know what I mean? Like he's good. I'm not sure who he'll get, but he's tough. He's going to be hard to beat, man. Like I think he'll work his way back up rather quickly to whoever has Santos or Teixeira or Blachowicz. So, But yeah, I do agree with you in the sense of Jones going up. He'll get winner of Ngannou, Stipe. I'm assuming that fight happens first. I mean, maybe not.
You'd hope so. Yeah, we'll see.
You'd think so, man. But Jones makes money. You know what I mean? Like sells. Yeah. He's not gonna fight a contender first. That's not happening. So, winner of, I would assume Ngannou would get first crack at it.
Yeah, you'd hope so, especially, and I get it. Stipe's had sort of a rough go in terms of getting fights booked. He had to wait for the whole Lesnar thing with Cormier.
But I think that's a dangerous fight. I think Ngannou's a dangerous fight for him. If I'm Jones, I fight Stipe and retire.
Yes.
I think Stipe is a good matchup for him. And Ngannou's a tough fight for him.
Yeah, the one interesting thing with Jones, and I talked about this before in the podcast, we've never really seen him get hit by like a power puncher. That's why the Anthony Rumble Johnson fight was so interesting if that was to ever happen. Yeah, and then that's just it. Can you get on the inside with Jones? He's not going to have those advantages at heavyweight like he did at light heavyweight because he's such a long guy. So I'm curious, can he take a Ngannou punch? Because a lot of Curtis Blades twice couldn't, right? So
nobody can take that punch, man. Nobody can take that punch.
He took one and he managed to persevere and get the win. So we'll see.
Stipe took a punch, but not like Rosenstruck took, or you know what I mean? Not one of those.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like nobody's taking that punch. But I mean, Stipe's been dropped by Overeem. He got dropped by DC. He got knocked out by DC. Like it's not like he's got this like phenomenal chin. I mean, he's got a great chin. Stipe's the man. I'm not in no way taking it away, but it's not like he hasn't been knocked out before. You know what I mean? Like, but what's interesting to me is if he fights Ngannou is like I haven't seen John wrestle in quite a long time. He's getting a little older. I think it costs him more to wrestle. But the Stipe fight is the one I want to see. You know what I mean? I really don't, to be honest. I mean, I'll watch it, but I don't really have an interest in Ngannou and Jones. I would rather watch Stipe and Jones. That's the fight I would rather see. And I think Jones is a tough matchup for him.
Well, and that's the fight they had linked after Jones defeated Cormier for the second time before he got the whole PED thing happened. They were aiming for that fight in December between Stipe and Jones, so they've been linked there for quite a bit. Let's keep going through this card. We'll just a couple more fights. One I'm sure we got to talk about because you train with them. Brandon Royval, what a performance that was over Kia France. One of the best flyweight fights we've ever seen. One of the best rounds we've ever seen. I mean, that fight was crazy. It brought a bit of everything. If you guys watched the show last week, I was very high on Brandon Royval going into the fight. I couldn't understand why he was the underdog, had height and reach advantage. Kind of a guy who's been counted out. You know,
how is he okay? Underdog, I'll buy. How is he that big of an underdog?
Yeah,
like the dude, he's good, man. He is good. I don't know why he's not getting the credit. I bet he will next time, though. You know what I mean? Like
he will. But I think part of it, James, is that Cara France, city kickboxing guy, is his teammate. I think that played a little bit into it, and that's something I talked about on the show. Was I felt like there was going to be a lot of people betting on him because hey, it's city kickboxing, but Royval's a stud. I mean, you know this. You've trained with him. He also fought one of your good friends, Tim Elliott, as well.
But if you watch him, go watch his fights for the UFC. He fights like that. That's how. This is not like he's crazy. He's been fighting like that for a long time. And what you're seeing is like an evolution of his fight IQ coming into play. He's becoming less emotional and very, very intelligent on how he's fighting. He used to be very, very wild is the word I would use, but he's really cleaned up how he's approaching the game, and he's very, very smart now. And how it looks wild, but it's very, very controlled. He does it very dangerous. Punches off every kick, kicks off every punch, spins those elbows in, throws the flying knees. He's always got something in your face. He's really good, and he is nasty on the ground. Nasty on the ground.
No, it was a breakthrough performance. I love how they put this on the pay-per-view, so it got a little bit more shine in the flyweight division, which is making a comeback now. We're really seeing that. I got a lot more to say on Brandon Royval after we get through the rest of this card, but just a great fight. If you guys didn't have a chance to watch that fight, go back and watch it. You won't regret it for sure. A fight that you definitely can skip, and I don't mean any shade here, but Caitlin Vieira, Sijara Eubanks, not a great fight. I mean, let's call it what it was. Vieira getting the decision over Eubanks. I think no shocker there. Just a lot more talented on paper. The game plan seemed to work for Vieira coming off that loss to Irene Aldana, going out there, getting the decision over Sijara Eubanks. Props to Eubanks. She fought, 2 weeks ago, stepped up on short notice, replacing Marion Renault. Good win for Vieira. Does it get her that title shot against Amanda Nunes? I'm not sure. I mean, we're going to have to see how, this week's card sort of unfolds, a couple key matchups there. But what did you think of this fight, James? Like I said, not one that you're going to go back and really get excited about watching again.
There was a part of it that intrigued me because Eubanks is coming off of, she beat Avila
in her last fight. She's a big underdog, yeah.
Yeah, big underdog. I didn't expect her to win that fight, and she looked really good. And I will say I have seen a lot of improvement in her game. I just think that Vieira is a little bit more of a diverse fighter with the takedowns. She wrestles a little bit better, and she just seemed to like it was really close, really competitive. And then like the last minute, she would get like a really key takedown that won her the fight. It was kind of lackluster, but she got the job done.
Certainly did. And then the other fight to open up the pay-per-view, Hakeem Dawodu taking on Zubiara Tukhugov. Pretty good fight overall, a close one. Some people felt it could have gone the other way, but I thought Hakeem did enough in the fight. I thought this was one of his better fights that we've seen in the Octagon. And also, Zubiara missing weight in this fight, which is unfortunate. He came in at 150. We'll talk about that later too, because I think they got to figure out something with this weight cutting stuff. Because we're seeing guys that are missing by more than 3 pounds, and it's not good. And I like how
that's all
Adesanya
because of the time
poster.
now. If you notice, it's the time. I'm telling you, you're seeing these big guys. They're seeing these guys miss by like 4 and 5 pounds now. And I think in the last 6 months, especially if you look at it, a lot of them are on Fight Island. I'm telling you, it's the time change. Like all that stuff plays a huge factor in cutting weight.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Dawodu ends up getting the win. He's now 12-1 overall. A lot of people asking what's next. Something like a Shane Burgos, like a Dan Ige, that type of fight would really interest me because I think Dawodu's at the point now where we want to see him challenged. And, this wasn't an easy fight for him. Like I said, winning a split decision. But I think with his age and the fact that he's a guy that hasn't lost since that really bad debut. I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago, he got submitted in like seconds to Danny Henry. Hasn't lost since then. So I think a lot of potential here for Hakeem, but he's got to get that name now, I think, in that division and really see what he's made of and see if he can go on a run here because I think we're at that point with him. So really
he's
good
really
fight.
Good. He's really good. Like somebody in between. He's not ranked, right?
No, he's not. No.
So somebody like 10 to 15, I think would be a good logical next step for him. He's good, but I think he'll. The guy that comes to my mind. I think he's even fighting this weekend. He got subbed by Henry early to see if he's righted those wrongs. The guy that comes to mind is Amir Khani.
Yes.
Put him against Amir Khani. see what he does. And I think, is Amir Khan ranked, or he was ranked?
Amir Khan was ranked. He's actually fighting Edson Barbosa, I think, coming up here soon. Not this weekend's card.
I think he's fighting this weekend, isn't he?
No, I think that fight. Let me just double check. Yeah, he's fighting Barbosa. I'm just trying to find out the date, because that was supposed to be Barbosa and who was it? Sodiq Yusuff. So no, that's next week's card. That's the 10th. But yeah, so it's Barbosa and Amir Khan, which is crazy. But that's what I mean. Like, Shane Burgos was the guy who beat Amir Khan, so I think that's kind of an interesting. Maybe they could do Burgos and Duadu as well. We'll see. But yeah,
what number
I agree
is
with
Burgos?
You. Burgos is. Let's look at the rankings.
I feel like that's a slight too big of a step up.
Absolutely could be, but I almost want to see where he belongs. And if he goes out there and let's say he loses, but it's a close fight, or he has his moments, I think it's a good indication of where he's at.
Burgos is good.
He's a killer, and he's got a chin on him too. So yeah, you know what? It kind of Burgos is 13. That's why I think it kind of makes sense. So he's top 10.
Well, shoot, yeah, I'm with that then. Let's go.
Yeah. There we go. All right. And then last thing I want to talk about on this card is the Diego Sanchez and Jake Matthews fight. I mean, it is what it is. I warned people last week. I talked about this because, people are like, Matthews is going to go out there and destroy Diego, in the first round. It's not even going to be close. I knew this would happen, where Diego would do some weird stuff. He'd survive, and it goes to the distance. And that's exactly what happened in this fight. I was telling Dan Tom this last week on our show. Matthews obviously won this fight. I thought he looked pretty good, but I mean, Diego Sanchez is such a wild card with what he's doing now with his training and everything. What did you think of the fight, Coach? I got to get your take on that.
Don't ask me for my coaching perspective. Ask me from a fighter. This is funny you brought this up, because I was sitting there with Dawson. He was over at my house. We're watching the fight. Yeah. He said, Matthews is going to finish him. I said, no, he's not. I said, watch. And I said, this is going to be 30-26 across the board. Sure enough, all three judges, 30-26. I said that before the fight happened. I've been asking for that fight for a long time, actually, and for whatever reason, they never give it to me. And he needs to be done, man. The dude needs to be done. Like, he's lost too many damn brain cells. Like, and then the worst part of it is, like, I can respect Diego. I think he's obviously he should be in the Hall of Fame. Like, he's a huge part of the pioneer of our sport, Ultimate Fighter. You know what I mean? How many fights has he had in the UFC? Like, tons. He's obviously a pioneer of the sport. But what really bothers me is the coach that he has. Like, that dude is unfortunately, I think Diego is like off the deep end a little bit, and I think this dude is like manipulative and taking advantage of him. This dude is a clown, man. Josh Fabia or whatever the hell his name is. The dude is a joke. Like, he people like that, in my opinion, are I can't even, I get so upset talking about it. It's so ridiculous.
Did you see the video with him and Matt Serra where they
were man, he's
and what bothered me about that, James, and sorry to interrupt you, is that, he made it about him, where he's like, you're not giving me credit. And it's like, isn't this about the fighter? Like, I never see you go out there and say, hey, you never gave me credit for the Grant Dawson win. Like, people know you as the coach, but it should be about the fighter. Yeah, that's what kind of bothered me about that.
If you're doing your damn job, you'll know. You know what I mean? It's not about you. Who gives a shit? You know what I mean? Like, dude, like, that's what I'm saying. This dude is using Diego Sanchez as a platform to build his own busted ass, whatever it is. Yeah. Like, you're getting me riled up, James. God damn it.
Well, that's what I do.
He's a joke, man. He's selling wolf tickets to Diego. Diego's not smart enough to realize what's happening. It's a joke, man. Like, this dude is a sham. He's a disgrace to our sport. I'll say it. And like, to approach somebody like Matt Serra. Come on, man. He's lucky Matt didn't beat the hell out of him. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and like you said, it's like, he's approaching the media, like, talking about the media to Matt Serra. Like, dude, this guy's, he's one of us, man. What are you talking about? Like, he's a fighter first. You know what I mean? Like, get out of here, bro. Like, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. This dude's been in the sport for 6 months or however long. You know what I mean? Like, you don't even know the damn sport. He's a joke, man. Like, he's a joke. And unfortunately, he is already ruined, an already declining Diego. And I'm not talking bad about Diego. Like, I would love to fight Diego, but I have nothing but respect for that dude. You know what I mean? Like, he's a pioneer in our sport. But, man, this guy is a joke, bro. Like, the Fabia or whatever his coach is, he's a sham to the sport. He's a disgrace. Like, get him the hell out of here. Anyway.
On a lighter note, before we leave UFC 253, I want to talk about Brandon Royval and how I think this performance on Saturday night proved that this guy is the dark horse in the flyweight division. And if you're the UFC, you got to book this guy in another big fight for his next fight and put him high up on the card, because this to me is lightning in a bottle. I don't think the UFC expected this to be the fight it was. It was a great fight. I think on paper you looked at it, you thought, hey, these are two really good guys. But the fight that we saw, this really stole the show on Saturday, in my opinion. And if I'm the UFC, I'm riding with this, because you know what? What have we heard all these years, James, is that the flyweight division is not exciting.
I'm tired of
get
hearing
these
that.
guys in there. Me too.
I'm tired of hearing that.
This is one of those fights that I think you got to take advantage of, and you got to ride the wave. And to me, Brandon Royval has been a great surprise this year. With getting the win over Tim Elliott, now getting the stoppage win over Kia Kara France. This is what you want in that division. It's not about bringing guys like Cody Garbrandt down to flyweight. It's about building stars in your division. And I think Royval did that. I love the fact that he quit his job. I love the fact that he's all in on this. He's a young guy. He's a pretty good interview as well too. And I would really like to see the UFC utilize this and move forward and make this guy something to get excited about in that division. Look, they've got a lot of great flyweights in the division, and I love watching the fights. But when you have a guy like this on a big card like UFC 253, where he goes out there and gets an impressive finish, gets the bonus, take advantage of that. The next fight for Brandon Royval should be a big fight in that division, and it should be placed high on a card. Because guess what?
You ready?
I think it's going to be, we'll hear it in 1 second, but I just want to finish this. I think that you got to put him in that spotlight. And this is a guy that we got to be keeping an eye on, who I think will fight for a title one day. That win on Saturday, I was so impressed. Brandon Royval is the dark horse of this division. You heard it here. James, let's hear what you guys think. I think you can put him with anyone at this point. I mean, you could do him and Askarov. You could do him. There's a lot of really fun matchups for him.
Askarov's boring as shit. You don't want to put him with Askarov. I'll tell you the guy to put him.
Let's hear it.
It might be a slight jump the line, but I'm going to say Brandon Moreno.
Well, Moreno's fighting Alex Perez. Otherwise, I'm totally with you there.
I know that, but even winner of that. Here's why. You keep him away from a guy like Askarov. Like, if I'm the UFC and I'm thinking like, let's ride this kid's wave. You know what I mean? Like, I keep him away from Askarov. I keep him away from Formiga, and Brandon can grapple. Don't get me wrong, but there's so many better fights to make for Brandon. Like you put him with Perez, you put him with Marino, you put him with Benavidez.
Is that too much of a step up? That would be interesting if Joe still wants
Benavidez there's guys. I've been training with Brandon for a long time. I've been training with him for 6 years. There's fights in there in that division that are tough for him, and then there's fights in there that you think are tough for him, and in my opinion are really good matchups. The Kai Kara France fight, I looked at the lines and I was like, how is he a plus 205 underdog? Like, in my opinion, when they announced the fight, I always like, in my head, I'm always like, okay, who do I think is going to win this fight? And then I look at the lines, and I usually am pretty close. Like, yeah, I could see I thought it would be like a pick 'em. You know what I mean? But like, I know Brandon. Stylistically, I think he's a really difficult matchup for Kai. I seen plus 205 underdog. I'm like, I started second guessing myself. Like, man, maybe they're seeing something I'm not. Like, Brandon is a better striker than him. Kai doesn't really wrestle, but if he does wrestle, Brandon will buzzsaw him on the ground, as we've seen. Like, nothing I'm saying is opinion-based anymore. These are facts now, right? Like, and it's like, how does he beat him other than clipping him like we've seen? You know what I mean? Like, I just don't see. I think he's a terrible matchup for Kai. But you put him against somebody like Moreno, who likes to strike and likes to jiu-jitsu, they're the same guy, right? Yeah. Neither one of their wrestling is phenomenal. But if you put him against somebody like Formiga or Askarov, those guys are going to try to take him down and just hold him. Like, they're boring fights to me. You would be doing a disservice to the flyweight division and to Brandon Royval by booking those fights, in my opinion. Like, I think there's way better fights to make where you can highlight this kid's shine. And I think you can really ride the wave of what he's doing right now. And I think they would be doing a disservice by matching him up with a boring ass grappler right now. And not to say that those guys are boring, but I don't see either one of those guys striking with him. You know what I mean? Like, put him against somebody that's going to strike with him.
That's why you're on here. I got to learn. I got to get these, little tidbits, these little things in mind too, when it comes to matchmaking. So thank God I'm not Sean Shelby, because James Krause knows how to sell fights. We do have a card this Saturday, Holly Holm and Irene Aldana. We'll get through this. It's not a great card, I'll be honest. These are usually the cards that end up surprising and becoming amazing here. So don't want to talk too much shade here, but we're going to start. We'll start on the prelims. I don't know. I'm sure you're familiar with this guy because I know he's been training a little bit at Factory X every now and then. But the one fight I did want to mention on the prelims is Carlos Conda and Court Mcgee. what an interesting fight this is, just with, both coming off layoffs. Mcgee hasn't fought since the Sean Brady fight in October of last year. And then Carlos Condit actually hasn't fought since the Michael Chiesa fight, which was in December of 2018. Looking on blitzbet.eu, which Canadian listeners, if you're going there, you can absolutely use the lines. But right now I'm looking on here on Blitzbet, and right now Court Mcgee, a slight favorite at -133, Carlos Condit +109. What are you expecting from this fight, James? Because, the Carlos Condit we saw fight Robbie Lawler is not the Carlos Condit we've seen the last couple of fights. So how do you look at this from a style perspective?
This is really difficult for me because there's just so many unanswered questions about both guys, really. You know what I mean? Like Condit, he's just been in so many wars. It just seems like he doesn't have that, and I don't even want to talk bad about him because I respect him so much. He was an idol, for me coming up in the game. And he just, Father Time is undefeated. And it's not the year of the car, it's the miles, right? And he's got a lot of miles on him. His style is very rough. He's been in the fight with Lawler, and that'll change your life, right? And I'm serious. I'm not like, for those of you guys listening at for those of you guys listening at home, that those style of fights will change your life. So I just feel like it's an unanswered question on what we're gonna see from him. And Chiesa's a tough matchup for him. You know what I mean? Like Chiesa is a smothering style, and with a long layoff, it's just tough, So Court can wrestle though, man. Court is good, but also there's unanswered questions about Court too. His inactivity makes it really difficult for us to be like, he's this. And he definitely hasn't fought to his potential. Fought Sean Brady last. Brady's really good. You know what I mean? Like, and I think he lost a split decision before that to Lima, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Yep. So I think these guys are. This is, in my opinion, this is a must-win for both of these guys, and we're gonna learn a lot about where they are. I don't know how to. To me, I don't. I'm gonna rock with Court just because he's a Factory X guy, and I feel like he's a more diverse attacker. He's good striking. He's got good wrestling, but like in my opinion, Court doesn't use all his skills. He's got like this vast array of attacks. I don't know if he lacks confidence in him or whatever, but he's really good. And it's just like, he doesn't seem to like use it all sometimes, you know what I mean? But when he does, you're like, where's this guy been? You know what I mean? This is the guy we need to see. And I feel like we're kind of in the same boat with Condit now after he's been through those wars. So man, for me, I'm going with Court because he's my boy, but it's a really intriguing matchup for me. And like, it's a must win in my opinion for both guys.
So I'm actually going with the dog here. I don't know why. I feel like this has got to be the one fight with Condit having this much time off and with the experience and who he's fought. And it's not like he's losing the guys that are bad. They're really good fighters that he's losing to. Like you mentioned, Michael Chiesa, who's been on a tear, just beat RDA, right? So I think there is potential here for Condit to pull up the upset. But personally, if you guys are looking to bet this fight, I would stay far away. There's too many questions on both ends, in my opinion. Mcgee is a guy that never quits. You can never count him out. But Condit, like I said, on paper, more fights, more experience. It's really tough to say. But I would just personally stay away from that fight. Let's get to the main card. We're not going to go through this too extensively. This is not a deep card, as they say. But opening up the main card, we're going to have Dusko Toriotovic taking on dequan Townsend. Now, if Dusko sounds familiar, he fought in Contender Series last year, not this past summer, but the summer before, beat a Canadian guy by the name of Teddy Ash. I know Teddy quite well, trains with Tanner Bozer and KB Buller at Shaved Bears in Alberta. Pretty good win for Dusko in that fight. I believe he's the underdog too. A lot of people expecting Teddy Ash to win that one. And dequan Townsend, we know him. He's fought 3 times in the UFC, still looking for that first UFC victory. Had losses to Dalcha, Bavon Lewis, and Devin Clark in his last fight. Now, Devin Clark's one of the, I think he's a great fighter in that division, so that's not a bad loss to have. Bavon Lewis probably would have liked that one back. But Townsend actually heads into this fight with a height and reach advantage in this one. But he's way older. He's 34 years old as opposed to Dusko, who I believe is 29. I'm just going to double check this right here. He's 26, actually. So it's a case of putting a veteran against an up-and-comer. Do you have any read on this fight, James? I'm personally, I'm going with Dusko in this fight, but I think if you're going to bet this, there might be some value here on Townsend because I'm just looking at the lines here. Townsend is, I think he's plus 245 for a guy who, has already had 3 fights in the UFC. I see some value there, but I wanted to get your take on this fight.
You pretty much just took the exact words out of my mouth. I'm going to go with Dusko as well. But I also feel like the value is not where it should be. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I don't think it's that big of a gap. I do feel like if you're Townsend, there might be some added pressure looking for that first win, and you got to think like, hey, this is a pink slip fight. So for me, when those guys, whenever they do this, they're either like, they either show up or they completely fall off the wagon, you know. And it's so I'm gonna go with the younger guy on this one. I think he's a little bit more well rounded. In those contender series, guys have been looking really good lately. The UFC's done an incredible job building talent out of there, real talent, you know. And I agree with you 100%, Dusko. But I don't think the value is there. I don't think it's a 245 plus 245. Is that what it was? Yeah. I don't think that's accurate either.
Yeah, no, we'll have to see how the line looks closer to fight time, see who people are betting here. The other fight on this card, now I've heard rumblings this fight got moved. My buddy over at MMA Canada, MMA Empire, I should say, as mentioned, this fight's been moved to next week's card, but we'll break it down anyways, assuming it does go on here. But we've got KB Bowler taking on Tom Breeze. Now, KB Bowler, if you guys remember, was supposed to fight on Contender Series. They ended up pulling him from that, and he's getting this UFC fight. KB Bowler undefeated at 8-0, but is the underdog in this fight against Tom Breeze, so we know quite well. Tom Breeze, very talented guy, actually coming off a loss to Brennan Allen in his last fight, but prior to that, he had wins over Cathal Pendred and Nakamura. He's been in the UFC since 2015, so just Breeze very inactive. I know he's had some mental health issues in terms of him. I know there was that one fight where he had to pull out due to anxiety. I'm not making light of that. I'm just talking about what it actually is. So Tom Breeze right now on BlitzBet, you'll see is the betting favorite right now. He's a minus 213, whereas KB Bowler is plus 170. I'm actually going with the Canadian here, assuming this fight will happen, whether it's next week or the week after. But the reason I'm going with Canadian here is just the activity. He's been a lot more active. The last win that Bowler had, which actually got him this opportunity, was a win over Matt Dwyer, who you'll remember was in the UFC as a welterweight, a really tall, lanky guy, had that fight with Alan Jouban. Dwyer's a guy that's been around for a while and still getting wins on the regional scene as well. So, and Bowler, I should mention, main training partner Tanner Bozer, getting that, he was expecting a fight at around this time anyways. So the idea of him not having a full camp, I think goes out the window. With me, it's more honestly, it's more a case of a guy who's undefeated, really doesn't have much to lose. Whereas Breeze, he was thought of this big time prospect. It really hasn't gone that way. I'm sort of basing it off that, but I wanted to get your take on this one.
Man, everybody that I've ever talked to says Breeze is one of the best guys in the gym that you'll ever train with. And I think when he fights, you kind of see that at times where he's like, man, that dude's really good. And he pulls out that, this guy's an upcoming prospect. But then there's also times where you're like, shit, I don't know, man. So for me, the inconsistency is a little rough, but just like we said last time, if Breeze does show up, the value for sure isn't there. You know what I mean? He's got a lot of experience. He's been fighting for a long time. He's fighting a younger kid. For me, this is all about Breeze. And this fight for me is which Breeze shows up. And if he shows up, man, he's a gamer. He's good, but for me, he's been a little too inconsistent for me in the past to really, I don't think the value is correct. I think there's a little bit more value there for Breeze than Baller, but he's a little too. I would stay away from this one if this was. Yeah, that's what I was saying too with Breeze.
Yeah. It's kind of a wild card of what you're going to get, and we'll see how that unfolds. Again, we're hearing rumblings that this has been moved to next week, but just thought we'd mention it here anyways.
Why? I wonder why. Did he say why?
Yeah, I didn't. I saw some reports. MMA Empire is a buddy of mine. He runs he's really in tune with what's going on with the Canadian fighters. So I'll take his word for it. I'm not sure why. Maybe there's a visa thing with Buller being in Canada. Not sure. Just throwing that out there as maybe one of the ideas. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah. And I was a bit surprised to see them announce that fight on the weekend for next week. That seems kind of quick. Yeah. So maybe that was it too. We'll have to keep tabs on that. But let's get to the women's bantamweight fight. Very curious to get your thoughts on this fight. So we've got Irene taking on Juliana Pena. Huge fight for the division in terms of title aspirations. And right now, the odds makers have Juliana Pena as the underdog at plus 100, Irene at minus 122. So the odds makers seeing this as a pretty close fight. I'll give you my quick breakdown and get your thoughts here. I think Irene is going to avoid the wrestling of Juliana Pena, keep this standing, and I think she wins in the stand-up. Now, I have had a lot of people saying the opposite, saying that Juliana Pena is going to out-wrestle her for 3 rounds. So where do you stand on this? Because, Irene is older, a little bit more active, but has some good wins, like that Aspen Ladd knockout. That's a great win for her. Ladd was undefeated at the time, lost to Nunes, but it was a fight where she had her moments in that one. So that makes me think that Irene is still very much up there. And the only thing with Pena is that obviously younger, hasn't fought as much, not as frequent, but still has some, some good wins there as well. Their only loss recently, at least in the UFC, has been Valentina. So can't, give her too much flack for that. But where do you stand on this fight? I was curious.
For me, I think Jermaine is grossly undervalued in this fight. There has been nothing to lead me to believe that the age is a factor. And just women's MMA across the board, generally age is not as big of a factor. She's been fairly active. She looked really good against Nunes striking. She got taken down a little bit, but Amanda Nunes is pretty good. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of her. She's fairly good. I agree with you. I think she's gonna. I don't think Pena's wrestling is like phenomenal. Her jiu-jitsu is good. I wouldn't be surprised if like she ended up on her back. But Pena's a scrapper. She finds ways to win. I personally think that that Jermaine is going to stop the takedown and win the striking. I think she's far better striker than Pena is. And I don't think the value is where it should be. I think Jermaine should be more of a favorite. Yeah, I mean, I feel like Jermaine's going to avoid the takedowns and win the striking pretty convincingly.
Yeah, that's how I feel about this fight. I got a lot of flack this morning on my live chat when I said the same thing. I said, I think the line should be higher in Jermaine's favor. I think she's proven time and time again that she can compete at the highest level. Whether you thought she beat Holly Holm a couple of years ago or not, the fact that she went the distance with her and made it a close fight shows me that she is a very high level fighter in that
She's
sense.
competed. So, she has always been right there. Yeah. Even when there are losses, she's been right there. She's never out of a fight. You know what I mean? Like, And the same with the Aspen Ladd. I felt that same way. Like I felt like she was an underdog in that fight.
Yeah, she was. Yeah.
And I won some money on that. I was like, how? You know what I mean? Like, how is this? I don't. Man, the lines makers are on 95% of the time, and then there's one fight that I'm like, what do you guys see here? Like, what do you know what I mean? And this is I don't feel like it's as big as it's not quite the Aspen Ladd fight. You know what I mean? But like I do feel like Jermaine's undervalued in this fight.
Now, can you believe this is the co-main event? And I love Yorgan De Castro, great heavyweight, super nice guy, entertaining, but I'm a little bit surprised to see the co-main event as opposed to Durandamy and Pena, which has more implications in my opinion. But here we are, Yorgan De Castro, Carlos Felipe, right now on BlitzBet. You've got De Castro as the favorite at -270, Felipe -215. This is how I sort of see this fight. De Castro coming off the loss to Greg Hardy in his last fight. I know they're really high on De Castro, even though he's a bit of an older guy. I mean, for heavyweight, he's young, but in general, he's very good. And I think the Hardy fight showed that he's got some work to do because Hardy just sort of outworked him in that fight, had a good game plan going in there. This to me looks like a fight to build up Yorgan De Castro. I think Felipe's a guy that, entertaining, so to speak, but had a pretty disappointing debut against Sergey Spivak where he lost a majority decision. This looks like a fight that they want, that I think is De Castro's fight to lose. I'm expecting either a finish or a hard fought decision in this one, but I like De Castro here. Which way are you leaning?
De Castro for sure is the answer. I feel like what's De Castro's record? He doesn't have a lot of fights, under 10 fights.
He's only got 7 fights actually.
Yeah, and so my thing with him is I feel like he was on his way to win that Hardy fight, and he got away from the low kick, which he broke his foot, I believe. Yeah. But the answer is I feel like De Castro is gonna win this fight. I feel like he's the boxing is very similar. I think the low kick is going to be the difference in this fight. I see De Castro finishing either by hands, but I see him hurting the leg early. He's a very good low kicker, very underrated low kicker. And Philippe just hasn't, like, he's game, but I don't think that's gonna. De Castro's got a very, very high fight IQ when it comes to striking. I think he's gonna pick that front leg apart, and we'll see. I feel pretty confident in my answer though.
Kind of like the Durandamy and Juliana Pena fight. In the main event, it's same sort of thing. We've got Holly Holm taking on Irene Aldana. Aldana, the younger fighter. Holly Holm, very accomplished, former bantamweight champion. Still even at her age is getting some big wins. She's coming off that win over Raquel Pennington. If you go into BlitzBet right now, Holly Holm is the favorite at -122. Irene Aldana +100 in this one. Now it's understandable because Aldana coming off that huge win over Caitlin Vieira in her last fight where she finished her. A lot of people forget that Vieira was on her way to fighting Amanda Nunes. Had she won that fight, Aldana stopping that train, and now she fights Holly Holm here. What it comes down to me is and I'm picking Holly Holm in this fight, and I feel like she will be able to keep this fight standing. Aldana is not known really for someone to try and take the fight to the ground, but we know that's Holly's kryptonite. That's how Miesha Tate beat her. Remember, she tried for the takedown at UFC 196, got it, tried to get the submission hold in, didn't work, and then later in the fight, she ends up getting it, chokes out Holly. So there is a way to beat Holly unless you're fighting, unless you're Amanda Nunes and you're able to actually outstrike her. But Holly wins a lot of her fights, keeping it standing, that boxing experience. I think even at her age now, I think she's still doing that at a high level. I don't see Aldana taking this to the ground, and I think if it stays standing, while I do think Aldana might be a bit faster, I think Holly's a little bit more technical, and I think that's what will lead her to victory in this fight. But I'm curious to get your thoughts on this one, Coach. How do you see this one playing out?
I'm fairly similar. I think Aldana's she can box. I don't think she's got the wrestling to take Holly down. I I do think Aldana is going to cause some problems, maybe even surprise some people striking. Her boxing is crisp. She's one of my favorite people to watch straight boxing in MMA. She's got some very, very good boxing in MMA. The difference I feel like is going to be Holly's done this time and time again. Whenever she's fighting somebody maybe a little bit more youthful, faster, whatever, she sticks them to the cage, and she just is more physical than a lot of these girls are. I foresee that being the same thing here. I think Holly, if she has if Holly can't deal with the range and the boxing of Aldana, I think she's going to put her on the cage, not even take her down, hold her there, just like she did Raquel. Mm-hmm. Put her there. She did the same thing with Megan when she fought Megan. She's very, very physical girl. She's very strong. She puts you on the cage, nullify your range, and hold you there, beat you up on the cage, take you down, let you back up. I just. It may not be a pretty win, but I see Holly walking away with a decision win.
There you go. So Krause and I similar on a lot of these picks here. We're picking Holly in the main event. We'll see how that actually unfolds. As we get out of here, one of the things we touched on earlier, Israel Adesanya after his win at UFC 253, talking about harsher penalties for weight cutting. And he mentioned getting rid of the fighters, 90% of the fighter's purse, giving it to the opponent. I think that's a little crazy, but here's what I'm proposing here, James, and I'll get your thoughts after I go on my little rant here. I think the solution, one of the solutions, maybe not the solution, maybe an improvement to the weight cutting thing, is that you have a point deducted if the fight starts. Now, look, there's a lot of reasons for fighters missing weight. Some of it is discipline. Some of it is, circumstances beyond your control, whether it's, who knows? There's a lot of different things that go into weight cutting missing. But I think if you take a point off, that gives that opponent an advantage the same way that having extra weight in that fight gives the opponent the advantage. So I think this is a step in the right direction in terms of the weight cutting. There's been lots of talk about, changing the weigh-in times, talking about, stiffer penalties. If someone gets more money, I don't think it's going to make a difference of them in the fight, because I think at the end of the day, they're still going to have that advantage. But the one way you can change things is taking off a point. So this is something I've said for a while. I think taking off a point, if you miss weight by more than 3 pounds, I think that is something that would definitely put the opponent that made the weight, that made the sacrifice, that made the effort, give them the advantage that they deserve in this fight. James Krause, your thoughts on that? Because I'm curious to get what you think could be at least an improvement, not a solution.
So what do you do? What do you do with people that miss by less than 3?
I think you still get, because as far as my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Coach, if you miss by 3, I don't think that's a huge advantage for the opponent, is it? I think once you start creeping up to the 4 and 5 pounds, that's when things get a little bit crazier. Am I wrong on this? That's why I'm.
No, I would agree with that. I would agree with that. The 4 and 5 is when I start with my fighters. 4 and 5 is when I start asking myself, should we even take this fight? That's whenever that's when I ask that question. I see where you're going with it. I'm going to disagree just because.
Good. I love it. That's what we need. I think it's the first time we disagreed on here. So it's good.
I'm going to disagree just because, listen, if you, let's say we miss by 5. Yeah. And it's a fight. So we're trying to figure out who is a better fighter. Right. And if as a coach, I feel like we lost that fight because the guy was bigger, I shouldn't have took the fight to begin with. Right. So if I go there and I automatically, we go to the fight and we're within 5 pounds, 10 pounds, whatever, you see it all the time. I think it would be more, valuable if they seen what the weigh-in of the night of the fight was too, because some of these guys get freaking huge. I don't even want to tell you what Dawson gets up to. That dude is massive, over 30 pounds, pounds. Yeah. So I feel like if you start the fight, if we're saying, hey, as a coach, I accept this fight, I still think we're going to beat you, even if you have a 5-pound advantage. But now I'm going to start a fight, and now what if we win because of that point deduction? We didn't win. This is like the Cowboy and Nico fight. I'm not going to feel good about that. That's not a win. You're going to see more draws, and then you know what I mean. I don't think that's the answer. If you feel that way, if it gets to a point where hey, you missed by so much, we need to take a point, don't take the damn fight to begin with. You know what I mean? If you need that big of an advantage, don't take it to begin with. Now, we can't do a 90% purse deduction.
Yeah. Then everyone would be poor.
Is going to management and coach. You know what I mean? And then 30% is going to tax. We're already getting only 50% to begin with. Pay is already a big complaint of fighters. And now you want to take 90% of it. I don't think that's the answer either. I don't know what the answer. You know what I mean? I do agree. Maybe okay. So I'm speaking out loud here.
Of course, yeah.
If you miss weight and you try to weigh in at 9, you can't weigh in at 9. You have to weigh in at 11. You have to wait that extra. Your opponent gets the 2 hour. You know what I mean? So you can't weigh in when weigh-ins start. You have to wait until the end. That's a start because you get a 2 hour rehydration advantage to begin with, and maybe bump the pay up a little bit, you know. And it's not, as he said, 30%. It's not 30%. It's usually 20. If they miss by big, it's usually 30. Maybe go up to 50. I'm with 50. I've seen 50 before in the UFC. I've seen people take 50%. I've seen that. That's a real thing.
Yeah.
That will hurt you. You know what I mean? That will, especially if you lose, you really might not walk away with much after taxes and everything, you know, after payouts and stuff like that. That will make you think about it. I don't think taking a point is the answer, because if you need that big of an advantage to start the fight, you shouldn't have took the fight to begin with. You know what I mean? Like if you're missing by 4 or 5, and maybe that's another thing. If you miss by more than 3, fights off.
Yeah.
You know, fights off. And maybe this is a good idea. Maybe if me and you are fighting, you miss by 3 pounds, I get my show money and your show money.
Right. Yeah. Good thinking.
You don't get paid anything. I get rebooked in a couple of weeks, and I make, you know what I mean? Like I get both our show money or whatever. You know what I mean? Like
it's complicated, but these are good solutions. At least we're talking about it. It seems like there hasn't been much. You know, weight cutting's been around forever, and it seems like this is still happening. And there, you know, you are seeing fighters that miss weight and end up winning, right? So,
but changing the time's not going to matter, because they're always going to push it.
Yes,
you know
exactly.
I mean?
Yeah,
they're always going to push it. You've seen it with the night weigh-ins, with the morning weigh-ins. Everybody pushes it. You know, and the morning weigh-ins, I like them better, but I don't like them better either, because you don't ever sleep, right? You have to get up super early and do that, but you get longer rehydration. It's bittersweet. Yeah, it really is. You know, it's better for the guys like me that don't cut as much anymore, but guys like Dawson that were cutting, you know, down to 45, it's tough. We got to get up at 4 a.m. and start. You know what I mean? It's like you cut till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and then you wake up at 4. He's on 2 hours of sleep, and then he rehydrates anyway, and then goes and sleeps for 6 hours. You know what I mean? It's like, what's the difference? You know what I mean? The only difference is maybe he sleeps a little bit better after he's had some water in him. It's not a big difference, to be honest with you. But I like 50% seems to be, that's one. And then if it's over 3 pounds, you lose your show money to your opponent, or a percentage of that, a large, you know, or maybe that's it. If you miss weight, you lose your win bonus. Right. Okay. You know, if you do that, or you lose your show money. I don't know. You know what I mean? It's so tough, because we're not making, I don't want to make, it's not a money talk. It's a weight
No, I know. Yeah.
Talk. So like, but you can't take 90%, then we'll lose money. Then you just won't fight. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to, any smart businessman is going to be like, dude, I'm going to lose money. Like, there's no way I'm going to do that. You know what I mean? Because you have to pay your coaches out anyway. You know, after taxes, you're going to lose money.
Before we get out of here, James, first off, killer job today on the show. Really appreciate it. I think broadcasting analyst work is definitely in your future. But what's next for you? Because the coaching thing's been going great. I got to give you props. Derek Minner, Kevin Kroom. There's been a lot of huge wins lately for your team at Glory and at Factory X. So that's been really cool to see. But what about you actually getting back in the cage? Any update there? Because I know for you, it's got to be the right fit.
Yeah, I tried to jump on the 25th on Fight Island. I ended up, the fight went to somebody else. It seems like Fight Island is pretty much the only date that I can make work. I have guys almost every weekend in November. I have Megan's title fight in December. So like it'll probably be the beginning of the year, next year. If I don't fight on Fight Island, it'll probably be next year before I fight. I'm trying to get on Fight Island. I want to be on Fight Island. I'm willing to take a short notice fight on Fight Island. I'm willing to fly out today to fight there. I had a fight there. I agreed to a fight on Instagram with the guy that agreed to fight me, and then they ended up giving it to somebody else. So I don't know, man. I'm ready to fight right now. My weight is good enough to make 70 in a couple days, probably, maybe, a week, if that. So hopefully I'll get something in on the island, so I don't have to wait until next year to fight.
Anything you want to plug at the end here? Any social media, any sponsors you want to give a shout out to? I'll give you the last word here, Mr. Krause, before I obviously sign off here as well. But
no, I appreciate you having me. Appreciate you having me, man. Thank you.
No problem. It's great to see you. By the way, before we go, you remember the first time we ever met in person?
Was that when Jason Witt fought?
That's right. May 2015, Global Dixon. Warriors 2. Jason Witt fought a local kid named Ryan Dixon, who actually had a really good record at the time, and Jason knocked him out, and the crowd went silent. I'm sure you remember that.
And I was scheduled to fight Crookshank, and he was there.
He was also cornering, what's his name? Was it Mike Hernandez?
I think so. I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, who beat Lyndon Whitlock, I think, in that fight as well. So there you go. James and I go way back. As we're wrapping up here, I just want to thank everyone for tuning in today. The plan going forward, as you guys have noticed, is to try and get another fighter on here, so I at least know somewhat of what I'm talking about here every week. Make sure you subscribe to the Line Movement YouTube channel. My interviews are on here, Octagon Outlook, every Monday, 1:15 p.m. Eastern time. More importantly, I want to thank James so much for joining us here today. Lots of great insight. Go follow him on Twitter at @DJamesKrause. And that's it for me. We'll see you here next week, 1:15 p.m. Eastern time. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week and enjoy the Holm Aldana card coming up here this Saturday.